The debate continues to rage on. Why did Florida State get left out of the college football playoff? I'm going to tell you 5 reasons, and I've got some help to back me up. I want to know what you guys think, but let's get into this right now. Welcome to the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Roll Tide, everybody. What do you say, everybody, with Chad Anderson? I'm Mick Gillispie. Chad here to help me go through these 5 reasons why Florida State did not make the college football playoff. So the format for this, Chad, I'm going to throw it out there, and then you tell me what you think, and let's see if we're on the same page. And I'm going to start with number 5. Number 5, the ACC isn't a power conference. I mean, let's get real. Look at Florida State's schedule. I give them respect for beating LSU, but that's their best win. Clemson's not any good, or they weren't last year. You barely beat them. You barely beat Boston College. You don't have marquee matchups when you're matching up against Duke. And remember, I know there's probably some Florida State fans that are watching and they disagree with me. When Bobby Bowden was at Florida State, used to kick the shit out of those teams. Now it's a very struggle type wins, and that did not impress the committee. And it goes back to the power conference. A lot of people are questioning if the ACC even deserves to be a power conference. And when you look at the list of teams that are in the college football playoff, Florida State's all by themselves after this year. It's all SEC and Big Ten.
You got a lot of teams that just simply hang on to one piece of information that's like tries to make them look good. Like people try to argue. How many times, Mick, do we see it? People try to argue that North Carolina has a football program. Like they constantly underachieve. And that's like one of the pride and joys of the ACC is that Mac Brown is there. Clemson, they had the run. They are a slowly declining football team. And I think their season would have been even worse had it not been for Tyler from Spartanburg. Then you got Duke. They try to pretend, right? Duke tries to come in every now and then. They play some good football. They got a decent, like they'll sneak up on you. Miami, back of the pack. NC State, it's not real. Notre Dame comes in every now and then. Like, there's just nothing that's like significant about that conference. And really before Florida State resurged in just the last 2 years, Clemson was the other version of Florida State. They just sat there and pounded on these bad football teams, undefeated, go to the playoff. But Florida State, hey guys, I'm sorry, you just play in a crappy conference.
All right, that's number 1 and or number 5 anyway, and that's our first one, and I think we both agree on that. Number 4, struggle wins and a strength of schedule that's 55. Yeah, part of that is your conference that's not any good. The other thing is that you're not dominating these football teams. I said it a second ago. You barely beat Boston College. You struggled with Duke. This isn't a good Clemson team. You're lucky to beat them in overtime. You should have lost. And then watching you try to knock out Louisville, a team that little Kentucky beat. Little Kentucky. What were they, Chad? Like 9th best in the SEC? But they went in there and they beat Louisville again, which they do every single year. And then Florida State, you guys had a chance. All you had to do was go in there and prove that you were deserving of being one of the 4 best teams. And instead, you played one of the worst football games I can ever remember watching. Honestly, if it didn't affect Alabama, I just would have turned the channel. It was so bad. Your offense, you couldn't move the football. You have a good defense, and that kept you in the game. You had some help from the officials in a lot of people's minds, but those struggle wins, style points, you needed them. When you're in a bad conference, Bobby Bowden was he was the pimp of style points.
Yeah,
and you needed them this year.
Yeah, you just look at their schedule up and down in ACC play and down the stretch, and there's nothing that stands out. You play a bad schedule. But, hey, Florida State fans, we're not only picking on you with this. We picked on Oregon about this for a month. Remember, Mick? Like, we do the
Yeah.
college football shows on Tuesdays. Everybody bitched about Oregon. Why are they so high? Why are they so high? Because they didn't play anybody either. They weren't beating. I mean, they win some games and they blow a couple of teams out, but they weren't playing anybody. Then they go play the one good team in their conference and they get beat. So same thing here. Like, you guys you struggle to win. Don't look that impressive. 55th ranked strength of schedule. You can't do that when it's set up that way for you. You got to go out and dominate.
Number 3, Jordan Travis injury. This was a tough one because he's a really good football player. And the committee seemed to think that this was the reason why Florida State didn't get in. Maybe if he, well, you figure if he's healthy, I mean, you run right over that bad Florida team that lost at home to Arkansas and just seemed like they were always tripping over their feet the entire season. And maybe you take care of business against UNA, which you were down 13-0 for a while, which seemed crazy. You got to win those games. I know the score ended up being a blowout, but it didn't feel like a blowout. And then, obviously with everyone watching, right? Like everyone's watching you play against Louisville, everyone, because they're going, you know what? This is a tough decision, but you made the decision for them. If Jordan Travis is in there, you don't have those issues.
Yeah. Jordan Travis injury. This was the key piece because let's just be real. Look, if I get it. Okay, you were 11-0 before Jordan Travis went down. If Jordan Travis was hurt week 3, you're not 11-0. That's it. Bottom line, plain and simple. That's just unfortunately the way it is. But that's just not the case. Is that you guys were not going to be undefeated had Jordan Travis gotten injured. And he made that tweet. Oh, I wish I had just broken my leg earlier in the year. I understand what he's saying. I understand the point he's trying to make. I empathize with the guy. I think he's a good person from everything I can tell and what I've heard. And it sucks and it's very unfortunate. Bottom line, this team simply not a top 4 football team, even with Jordan Travis. But you're not a top 4 football team without Jordan Travis. And your team was not going to be 11-0, 12-0, 13-0 with Rodemaker as the quarterback for the entire season.
It's like you read my mind. Number 2, not one of the 4 best teams. The bottom line is, whether you think so or not, Florida State, you're not one of the 4 best teams. You're not one of the 5 best teams. You're not one of the 6 best teams. You might be at number 7. The committee put themselves in a spot by inflating you and not putting you back in the first place. We spent too much time worried about wins and losses because, when you play tough competition, sometimes you lose football games. Yeah. Florida State, I go through, Chad, and I'm like, okay, well, who's Florida State better than that's in the college football playoff? They might be better than Michigan, but Michigan beat Ohio State, right? They might be better than Washington, but Washington went undefeated and beat the Ducks twice. They might be better than Texas. No, they're not better than Texas. They're not better than Alabama. They're not better than Georgia. Honestly, Georgia should be the team that's pissed off. Georgia's governor should be the one that's trying to put money into a fund to sue them, not Florida's, because Georgia would win the college football playoff, I would say, or at least they would be favored to do it if they were in there. Unfortunately, they ran into the kryptonite to the Georgia program, and that's the Alabama Crimson Tide. But they're better than Florida State. Ohio State is better than Florida State. So now that pushes you way down here to number 7. The only thing that you have in your corner is that you didn't lose. But when I'm looking at the schedule, of course you didn't lose because you played Southern Miss. And you played Boston College, and you played Virginia Tech, and Syracuse, and Duke, and Wake Forest, and Pitt. These are all awful teams. You know what? You played Florida; they were like bottom of the pack in the SEC, and you got by, but it was ugly. And I'll give you this: your best win was the first win of the season against LSU, but honestly, LSU lost to everybody that was good in the SEC.
Yeah, they did. They're just not one of the 4 best teams. And that's what Bill Hancock said. You're supposed to pick the 4 best teams. you got to get off this undefeated stuff, because if you're undefeated, that doesn't give you an automatic pass into the college football. Guys, I can tell you that because this is the closest time we've ever come to having 5 Power 5 conference champions all be undefeated. Right, Mick? Like, this is the closest it's ever been. Think about that. Texas doesn't lose to Oklahoma, and Alabama doesn't lose to Texas. You got 5 conference champions who are all undefeated. So guess what? Undefeated doesn't mean shit. It doesn't. Because if it did, the committee's already telling you going undefeated isn't good enough to get in. Otherwise, they would have said, hey, the top 5 teams get into the college football playoff. So you're wrong thinking that undefeated is an automatic pass. And the reason there's a committee and the reason undefeated doesn't automatically get you there is because not every path is equal. Right. And don't give me the crap about, well, the NFL, not every path is equal. Major League Baseball, not every path is equal, blah, blah, blah. I got that. But they were predetermined, like, hey, divisions, win, losses, it is what it is. This isn't set up that way. If you want to set that up and make it a rule, make it a rule. But the rule is the committee decides, and not everything is equal. So if you're going to step back and decide, it's perfectly justifiable to say, you may be undefeated, but you're still not one of the 4 best teams in this country.
That's right. And I'm with you. I agree. Now, number 1 is brand value. The bottom line is the bottom line, and it always has been. They were giving away tickets to go to see the SEC championship game. You couldn't fill up the stadium.
ACC.
The ACC. I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah. The ACC. You couldn't fill up the stadium. Your tickets were valued at like $35. Big Ten, their tickets weren't much more, $50. Pac-12, nobody wanted to see that. Oh, the SEC, $450. Oh, let's go look at the television ratings. It was like the SEC tournament on television, the championship game, had like the best ratings that a game's had in like 5 years, right?
Yeah.
People were watching your game just to see if you guys deserve to get in. I'll say this, though. Florida State knows this. They're smart. Michael Alford, smart guy. I know him, smart guy. They would love to get into the SEC, and they belong in the SEC. We'd love to have them. Yeah. And don't think that if they weren't in there, they wouldn't eventually be one of the elite teams. I think it would happen. I've seen it before. I know that it can happen. But right now, the problem is you're in a conference that doesn't get any respect. Your brand value isn't what it used to be. When Bobby Bowden was like blowing over everyone and you won every game and you had the style points and you beat the crap out of everybody and you won championships, that's one thing. You've been out of the picture so long. And let's not forget, because I know there's been a lot of this blame it on Alabama. Bama should have been in the playoff last year, and they were in the same spot you were in. The governor of Alabama, Meemaw, she didn't go out and try to put $1 million into a fund to sue the committee and legal and all that stuff. You know what? We just watched the worst college football playoff because a team of your caliber got in there and somehow won a game and then lost by 60. There's no chance that Florida State was going to win the national championship. They weren't beating 2 teams in this field. And the brand value, the bottom line is the bottom line. They've got to sell right now the first couple of rounds of this new tournament that we have, right? Yeah. And they're not selling it with a 65-3 game. You're a 14 or a 15-point underdog against Michigan. They don't want that. You look at the field this year, and honestly, it's about as balanced as I can remember. And I think that is the reason why you didn't make it. Honestly, all the other stuff is eyewash. The bottom line is brand value. And your brand value is getting better, but it's not what it once was. And it's not better than Alabama. It's not better than Texas.
I can't remember the exact year that Bobby Bowden left West Virginia to take over at Florida State, but I'm looking here and I go back to 1954 for the Noles here. Okay. They were independent up until 1992. That was their first year in the SEC. I'm going to guess Bowden came over in around 75 or 76. I'm guessing that because of the records all of a sudden starting to spike in their previous history. But did you know, Mick, that Florida State didn't have a 10-win season until 1977.
Yeah,
Not a single 10-win. They were your homecoming opponent.
that's right.
Okay. They don't have the tradition and the championships and the nostalgia and everything that goes with college football other than the window of Bobby Bowden. And then Jimbo Fisher, he ought to share his buyout with Jameis Winston, because that is the only reason that he became this highest paid coach ever in college football.
Right.
All right. But you go back and look, and now when Bowden comes in, you're exactly right, Mick. They go on this run. Like, they have 10-win seasons all the time from 1987 until 2000. They had a 10-win year every year. They won national championships. I think 1993 was their first national title. They won another one. I believe it was 1999 when they beat Virginia Tech with Chris Winkie. They won another one with Jameis Winston. So they became a brand, and then they fell apart. After Jameis Winston, they started to die off. That was when it was like this slow decline. Credit Mike Norvell. He's brought them back.
Great coach.
Brought them back from Jimbo to Willie to now Mike. He's brought them back. However, you cannot argue that when you stack up the brands and go, what playoff do we want? We could go, hey guys, Michigan against Florida State with a backup, maybe third string quarterback, depending on concussion. And then that's basically a bye. And then it's Washington, Texas. Or we could go Michigan, Bama, Rose Bowl. Imagine that uniform game, hit the Rose Bowl, playoff game, winner plays Washington and Texas, probably Texas, but we don't know that. And that's in Houston, Michigan, Texas, Bama, Texas rematch.
Yeah.
Like, the brand matters no matter what anybody says. It does. And Florida State doesn't have that.
And look, it sucks, to be honest with you. Did they deserve to get a chance to play for the championship? Next year they will. And the toughest part's going to be staying motivated. I mean, look at Alabama. I mean, they were in the same spot last year. They were the first team out. And this year they were the last team in. So Florida State, next year you got the 12-team playoff. You guys will be in there. And I don't want to say that I don't feel bad for their players, because I do. But I'm just saying that this debate is raging on. And when you start talking about legal action and all of this, like, look, the bottom line is, and I just gave you 5, I could probably come up with another 5. You're just not as good as the teams that got in this year. But the program's on the right track, and it'll be fun to see all the things that happen with them. All right, guys, let me tell you about my friend Chad Anderson and Modern Lending. Oh, wait, I'll just ask Chad. He's right there.
I thought you were going to talk about all the paperwork and the stress I made you go through to buy a house.
You did. I called you a lot. You didn't always answer.
Here's the deal. All right, he's right about that. He's right.
I'm just kidding.
He's right.
You did answer.
He's right. Here's the deal.
I had a lot of questions.
Guys.
But when it was done, honestly, it was one of the greatest days of my life, Chad. It really was. Like, to walk in here and to buy a home, something that even as a kid, we didn't really own. We always rented, So not only did you here, I'm selling it for you, but not only did you make sure that I got a home, you got me in the right school district. And that was a big thing for us. And so I don't know if you remember, but you had to kind of bump that loan up a little bit for me a couple times.
I need to go back to the drawing board once or twice. And by the way, I do a mortgage channel, and guys, like on YouTube, and tell you, it's small right now. Okay. I'm admitting it. I'm not trying to oversell it. If you could like and subscribe that as well, that would be a huge help for me on the mortgage side. But real quick, I'll tell you, hey guys, mortgages suck. Okay. They suck. The paperwork sucks. Like, all of it sucks, but we do the best job we possibly can. I'm just being real with you and making it as seamless and easy as possible. We've done this for 10,000 families over 13 years. And I'm telling you, you should look at refinancing right now if you have any credit card debt, any. And remember, for this channel, we're doing an $1,800 lender credit for the month of December to celebrate the national championships. We win, we'll make it 19. Okay. We'll make it 1900. Extra
point. Give me another point.
That's it. So info's on the screen. Would love to talk to you if you want to chat.
All right, guys, roll Tide.